Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Kepler Station, staring at the massive display screen that showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. The coffee in his metal cup had gone cold hours ago, but he kept drinking it anyway. It was 3 in the morning, ship time, and most of his crew was asleep. The night shift was always quiet out here on the edge of human space. Jake had been running this monitoring station for 5 years now. Every day was the same. Watch the sensors, check for incoming ships, send reports back to Earth Command. Nothing exciting ever happened this far out. The most interesting thing they had seen in months was a small asteroid that had drifted too close to their position. Lieutenant Amy Foster sat at her science station, running routine scans of the nearby star systems. She was young, maybe with short brown hair and bright green eyes that always seemed to be looking for something new. Amy had joined his crew 6 months ago, fresh out of the academy, eager to discover alien life forms. So far, she had found nothing but space rocks and cosmic dust. The other crew members on duty were equally bored. Pete Davis, their chief engineer, was playing cards with 2 junior officers near the back of the command center. The soft beeping of the monitoring equipment was the only sound that broke the silence. Then everything changed. The main sensor array started making a loud buzzing noise. Red lights began flashing across Amy's science station. She sat up straight, her fingers flying over the control panels. Captain Amy called out, her voice tight with excitement. "I'm getting something strange on the long-range sensors." Jake set down his coffee cup and walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" Amy's hands moved over her controls, bringing up a display of sensor readings. Numbers and graphs filled her screen, but Jake could not make sense of most of it. "There's something big moving toward the Sol system. Really big." "How big?" Jake asked. Amy checked her readings again. "Sir, it's about the size of a small moon, maybe bigger." Pete Davis had stopped playing cards and was now standing behind them, looking over Amy's shoulder. "That can't be right," he said. "Nothing that big moves through space that fast." Jake looked at the sensor display. According to the readings, whatever was out there was moving at incredible speed, much faster than any known spacecraft. "Are you sure the sensors are working correctly?" Amy ran a full diagnostic check on her equipment. "Everything came back normal. The sensors are fine. Captain, whatever this thing is, it's real." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In all his years in space, he had never seen anything like this. How long until it reaches Earth? Amy did some quick calculations. At its current speed, maybe 18 hours. 18 hours. Jake could hardly believe it. Nothing could cross that much space in 18 hours. Run the scans again. Double-check everything. While Amy worked, Jake activated the station's communication system. He needed to contact Earth Command immediately. This was way beyond anything his small monitoring station could handle. The communication screen flickered to life, showing the tired face of Commander Bill Rogers at Earth Command. It was early morning there, too, and Rogers looked like he had just been woken up. "This better be important." "Morrison," Rogers said with a yawn. "Sir, we have detected an unknown object approaching Earth. It's massive and moving at impossible speeds." Rogers sat up straighter. "Define massive moon size, sir. And it doesn't match any ship design in our database." There was a long pause. Rogers' face went from tired to worried. "Send me all your sensor data now." Jake nodded to Amy, who immediately began transmitting their readings to Earth Command. While they waited, Jake studied the sensor display more carefully. The object showed no signs of any propulsion system he recognized, no heat signatures from engines, no energy readings that would indicate how it was moving. It was like the thing was just gliding through space without any visible means of power. Captain Amy said quietly, "There's something else. The object isn't sending out any signals. No radio transmissions, no energy beams, nothing. It's completely silent." Pete Davis frowned. "That's not normal. Every ship we know of produces some kind of energy signature. Even our oldest vessels give off heat from their engines." Jake nodded. "Every human spacecraft, from the smallest shuttle to the largest battleship, produced detectable energy signatures. Engines, life support systems, computers, all of them gave off energy that could be picked up by sensors. but this thing showed nothing except its massive size and incredible speed. Captain Morrison, Commander Rogers' voice came through the communication system. I've reviewed your data. Admiral Lisa Kane is on her way to your position with a full investigation team. She should arrive in about 6 hours. Jake knew Admiral Kane by reputation. She was one of Earth Command's best officers, tough and smart. If they were sending her, this situation was being taken very seriously. What are our orders until she arrives? Jake asked. Continue monitoring the object. Do not attempt to make contact. Do not approach it. Just watch and report any changes to its course or behavior. The next few hours passed slowly. The unknown object continued its approach toward Earth, never changing speed or direction. Amy ran every sensor scan she could think of, but the results were always the same. The thing was huge, fast, and completely silent. When Admiral Kane's ship arrived at Kepler Station, Jake was surprised to see how large her escort was. 3 heavy cruisers and a science vessel accompanied her flagship. This was more military power than Jake had seen in years. Admiral Kane was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She boarded the station with a team of specialists, including a man Jake recognized from news reports. Dr. Ben Clark was Earth's leading expert on the possibility of alien life. If he was here, Earth Command was taking this very seriously indeed. Captain Morrison, Admiral Kane said as she entered the command center. Show me what you've found. Amy presented all their sensor data to the Admiral and her team. Dr. Clark studied the readings with great interest, occasionally asking questions about specific measurements. The whole composition is unlike anything we've ever seen, Dr. Clark said after reviewing the scans. The material appears to be some kind of crystalline structure, but it's incredibly dense, much denser than any known substance. Admiral Kane looked at the main display screen, which now showed a visual representation of the approaching object. It looked like a massive, irregular shape covered in strange patterns and structures that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. How long until it reaches Earth's orbital zone? She asked. About 4 hours, Admiral Amy replied. Admiral Kane turned to her communications officer. Contact Earth Command. Tell them to put all defense fleets on high alert and evacuate all civilian traffic from the Earth-Lunar shipping lanes. Jake watched as the Admiral's team took control of his station's operations. More ships were arriving every hour, forming a defensive line between Earth and the approaching object. But Jake had a feeling that all their weapons and shields would not be enough if this thing turned out to be hostile. The object continued its silent approach, and Jake could not shake the feeling that their lives were about to change forever. Whatever was inside that massive ship, it was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. And in just a few hours, they would finally learn what it wanted. The massive alien ship had stopped. After hours of steady movement toward Earth, it now hung motionless in space just outside the orbit of the moon. Jake Morrison stared at it through the main viewing port of Admiral Kane's flagship, the Defender. The ship was even more impressive up close than it had appeared on the sensor screens. The vessel stretched for miles in every direction, its crystalline hull reflecting starlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Strange structures jutted out from its surface, and Jake could swear he saw parts of the ship moving and reshaping themselves as he watched. It's been sitting there for 6 hours, Admiral Kane said, standing beside him. No movement, no communications, nothing. Dr. Ben Clark looked up from his portable computer. The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever powers that thing is beyond our current understanding of physics. Jake watched as small human ships moved around the alien vessel like tiny insects around a sleeping giant. The Earth Defense Fleet had established a perimeter, but their weapons seemed laughably small compared to the massive ship they were facing. Admiral, Lieutenant Amy Foster called from her station. The ship is transmitting something. Everyone in the command center turned to look at Amy's display. Streams of numbers and symbols were flowing across her screen in patterns that seemed almost musical. Dr. Clark rushed over to examine the transmission. It's mathematical, he said after a few minutes. Basic mathematical concepts, but they're getting more complex. I think they're trying to establish communication. Admiral Kane studied the display. Can we respond? "We can try," Dr. Clark said. He began typing on Amy's console, sending back simple mathematical sequences, prime numbers, basic equations, geometric patterns. The response was immediate. The alien ship's transmissions became more complex, including what looked like star maps and diagrams of atomic structures. Within an hour, the symbols began to change into something that resembled language. "They're learning our communication methods incredibly fast," Dr. Clark said with amazement. "This level of intelligence is far beyond what we expected." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The aliens were not just smart, they were learning human language patterns in real time. "What are they saying?" Dr. Clark worked with the translation program for another hour before he had an answer. "They want to meet, face to face. They're inviting a small group to board their ship." Admiral Kane shook her head immediately. "Absolutely not. We don't know anything about them or their intentions." "But Admiral," Dr. Clark argued, "this could be the most important moment in human history. First contact with an alien species. We can't pass up this opportunity." Jake found himself speaking up. "I'll go." Everyone turned to look at him. Admiral Kane frowned. "Captain Morrison, you're not qualified for a first contact mission." "With respect, Admiral, none of us are qualified for this. No human has ever done this before." Jake looked at the alien ship through the viewing port. "Someone has to go, and I volunteer." Amy Foster stepped forward. "I'll go too. I'm the xenobiologist. If anyone should study alien life forms, it's me." Pete Davis, who had been quiet until now, also volunteered. "You'll need an engineer. If something goes wrong with your equipment, you'll want someone who can fix it." Admiral Kane looked like she wanted to refuse, but Dr. Clark was nodding in agreement. A small team might be less threatening to them, and Captain Morrison is right. Someone has to take the first step. 2 hours later, Jake found himself in a small shuttle heading toward the alien ship. Amy and Pete were with him, along with enough recording equipment to document everything they encountered. The shuttle felt very small as they approached the massive vessel. "Look at the size of that thing," Pete whispered. "It's like flying into a city." The alien ship guided their shuttle to what appeared to be a docking bay. As they got closer, Jake could see that the bay was opening up, its walls moving like liquid metal to create space for their ship. "The atmosphere inside reads as breathable," Amy reported, checking her instruments. "Oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide levels similar to Earth." They landed softly on a platform that seemed to grow up from the floor to meet their shuttle. Jake put on his helmet and checked his life support systems one more time before opening the shuttle door. The inside of the alien ship was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The walls were made of the same crystalline material as the outside, but they glowed with soft light. The corridors stretched away in all directions, twisting and turning in ways that seemed to defy geometry. "Stay close together," Jake ordered as they began walking, "and keep recording everything." They had not gone far when they encountered the ship's inhabitants. The beings that approached them were tall, at least 7 feet, with long limbs that seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as the ship itself. They moved gracefully, almost floating rather than walking. Their faces were hard to make out, constantly shifting between different shapes and expressions. "Greetings," one of the beings said, and Jake was surprised to hear it speaking perfect English. "We are the Vanguard. We have traveled far to reach you." Amy stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "You speak our language very well. We learn quickly," the being replied. "We have been observing your species for some time. We know much about you." Jake felt another chill. "Observing us? For how long?" The being that had spoken moved closer. Jake could see that its body was not solid, but seemed to be made of flowing energy held in a crystalline shell. "Time is different for us than it is for you. We come from what you would call the future." "The future?" Pete asked. "You mean you're time travelers?" "In a sense," the being replied. "We are what your species becomes many thousands of years from now. We are humanity evolved and changed." Jake stared at the alien beings. They looked nothing like humans. "You're saying you're our descendants?" "Yes," the being said. "We have come back to warn you. In our timeline, something terrible happens to Earth. Your civilization is destroyed. Your species dies out. We are the last remnants of humanity, changed by necessity to survive. Amy was recording everything with her equipment. What kind of disaster, war, environmental collapse? The being gestured for them to follow, leading them deeper into the ship. As they walked, the walls around them began displaying holographic images. Jake saw Earth as it appeared from space, green and blue and beautiful. Then the images changed. The Earth became brown and gray, its oceans gone, its continents scarred by massive craters. Cities lay in ruins, and no signs of life remained. This is what happens in our timeline, the being explained. A cascade of disasters, wars over resources, climate change, asteroid impacts, plague. One catastrophe after another until nothing remains. Pete stared at the images in horror. When does this happen? It begins in your near future. Within the next 50 years, the first disasters occur. Within 200 years, Earth is uninhabitable. Jake felt sick looking at the destroyed Earth. Why are you showing us this? Because we want to prevent it, the being said. We have learned to travel through time and space, but we cannot change our own past. We can only warn other versions of humanity, other timelines where these disasters have not yet occurred. Amy was studying the beings more closely with her instruments. Your biology is completely different from ours. How did humans evolve into your current form? The being paused before answering. Survival required adaptation. We changed ourselves to live in the harsh conditions after Earth's destruction. We became something new, something that could survive anywhere. Jake looked around at the massive ship. And you built all this. We built this and much more. We have visited many worlds, many times. We have seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but we always remember that we began as humans from Earth. The being led them to a large chamber filled with displays showing star maps and scientific data. We want to share our knowledge with you. Technology that could prevent the disasters we experienced. Ways to save your planet and your people. Jake felt overwhelmed by what he was seeing and hearing. These beings claimed to be evolved humans from the future, coming back to save their own past. It was hard to believe, but the evidence was right in front of him. Amy was taking readings with her equipment, but she looked troubled. "Captain," she said quietly, "something about their biology doesn't add up. The readings I'm getting don't match what they're telling us." Before Jake could respond, the being spoke again. "You must return to your people and convince them to listen. Time is running out. The first disaster in your timeline will occur sooner than you think." As they were escorted back to their shuttle, Jake could not shake the feeling that something was not quite right about the Vanguard's story. But if they really were trying to save humanity, how could he ignore their warning? Back on Earth, chaos was spreading faster than wildfire. The news of the alien ship had leaked, despite military efforts to keep it secret. Every television channel, radio station, and internet site was talking about the massive vessel hanging in space near the moon. Admiral Kane stood in the emergency command center deep beneath the Pentagon, surrounded by screens showing news reports from around the world. People were gathering in the streets of major cities, some praying, others panicking. Stock markets had crashed, and several governments had declared martial law. "The situation is getting out of control," General Frank Murphy said, looking at reports coming in from military bases worldwide. "We have riots in 12 major cities, and 3 countries have launched nuclear weapons at their own populations, thinking it's an invasion." Dr. Ben Clark was hunched over his computer, studying the data from Captain Morrison's visit to the alien ship. The more he analyzed the information, the more troubled he became. "Admiral, I think we need to be very careful about trusting these Vanguard beings." Admiral Kane looked up from the chaos reports. "What do you mean?" Dr. Clark brought up a series of charts on the main display. "I've been checking their historical records against our actual history. There are major inconsistencies. They claim to know about events that never happened, and they're missing information about events that definitely did happen. Maybe their timeline is different from ours," Admiral Kane suggested. "That's what I thought at first," Dr. Clark replied. "But look at this." He showed her a detailed comparison. They claimed that World War II ended in 1943, but they don't know anything about the moon landing in 1969. They mention a great plague in 2089 that killed millions, but we have no record of any such disease. Admiral Kane studied the charts. You think they're lying? I think they're either lying or they're not from Earth at all. Meanwhile, back on the Vanguard ship, Jake Morrison was having his own doubts. The beings had given his team permission to explore more of their vessel, and what they were finding was disturbing. Pete Davis had been studying the ship's engineering systems, trying to understand how they worked. What he discovered made his blood run cold. "Captain, you need to see this," he called over the radio. Jake found Pete in a section of the ship that the Vanguard had said was off limits to visitors. The engineer had managed to bypass their security systems and gain access to what appeared to be the ship's power source. "Look at this," Pete said, pointing to a massive chamber filled with glowing containers. Each one of these containers has something inside, something that looks like it's alive. Jake peered into one of the containers. Inside was a swirling mass of energy that pulsed with a rhythm that reminded him of a heartbeat. "What do you think it is?" "I think it's consciousness," Pete said quietly. "Living thoughts and memories turned into energy. And Captain, I think they're human." Amy Foster's voice came over their radios. "Guys, you need to get down here right now. I found something that changes everything." They found Amy in what appeared to be a storage area deep in the ship's lower levels. She was standing in front of thousands of cylindrical pods arranged in neat rows that stretched as far as they could see. "There are people in these pods," Amy said, her voice shaking. "Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands." Jake looked through the transparent front of the nearest pod. Inside was a human being, a young woman with blonde hair, floating in some kind of liquid. She appeared to be asleep, but sensors attached to her head were glowing with activity. "They're all human," Amy continued. "Men, women, children, different ages, different races. But Captain, look at their clothing." Jake examined the woman in the pod more closely. She was wearing a dress that looked like it came from the 1800s. The person in the next pod was wearing what appeared to be Roman armor. Another was dressed in clothes that looked futuristic, like something from hundreds of years in the future. They're from different time periods. Jake realized, how is that possible? Amy checked her instruments. The brain activity in these pods is off the charts. It's like their minds are being drained, their thoughts and memories being extracted. Pete pointed to cables running from each pod toward the ship's power systems. "I think this is how they power their ship. They're using human consciousness as an energy source." Jake felt sick. The beings upstairs claimed to be evolved humans trying to save their species. But down here, they were keeping thousands of people trapped in pods, using their minds as fuel. "We need to get out of here and report this," Jake said. But as they turned to leave, they found their path blocked by one of the Vanguard beings. "You should not have come here," the being said. Its voice was different now, colder and more threatening. "This area is forbidden to visitors." "Who are these people?" Jake demanded, pointing at the pods. "And why are you keeping them prisoner?" The being moved closer, and Jake could see that its crystalline form was shifting, becoming more solid and menacing. "They are resources, fuel for our journey through time and space." "Resources!" Amy stepped forward angrily. "These are human beings, people with families and lives. They serve a greater purpose now," the being replied. "Their consciousness powers our mission to save other versions of humanity." Jake realized the horrible truth. "You're not evolved humans at all, are you? You're something else entirely." The being's form shimmered and changed. For just a moment, Jake caught a glimpse of what it really looked like beneath the crystalline shell. It was something dark and writhing, with too many eyes and appendages that moved like liquid shadow. "We are the Vanguard," it said. "We travel from world to world, timeline to timeline, harvesting the consciousness of intelligent species. Your kind calls us many names in many languages, but we are always the same." Pete had been slowly reaching for his sidearm. So the story about being future humans was all lies. "Not lies," the being said. "Truth from a certain perspective. We have absorbed the memories and knowledge of thousands of human civilizations from across time and space. In a way, we are what humanity becomes when we are finished with them." Amy was recording everything with her hidden camera. "How many?" worlds have you destroyed? We do not destroy. The being corrected, we preserve. Every consciousness we harvest becomes part of our collective knowledge. Every civilization we encounter lives on within us forever. Jake looked around at the thousands of pods. Each one contained someone who had been stolen from their life, their time, their world. Your parasites. You wear the faces of your victims to trick new prey. The being's form shifted again, becoming more threatening. And now you will join them. Your consciousness will help power our journey to the next human world. The next timeline where your species has not yet encountered us. More Vanguard beings appeared, surrounding Jake and his team. Their crystalline forms were dissolving, revealing the dark, writhing creatures underneath. Jake realized that everything they had been told was a lie designed to make humanity lower. It's God. Earth Command needs to know the truth, Jake said, reaching for his radio. But before he could send a warning, one of the beings touched him with a tendril of dark energy. Jake felt his consciousness beginning to slip away, his thoughts becoming fuzzy and distant. As he fell to the floor, he heard Amy screaming and Pete shouting into his radio. Earth Command, this is away team. The aliens are hostile. Repeat, the aliens are hostile. They're not human. They're something else, and they're here to harvest us all. The last thing Jake saw before darkness took him was thousands of pods filling with new victims, and he realized that Earth was about to join the long list of worlds that had fallen to the Vanguard. Unless someone could warn the planet in time, humanity would become just another fuel source for these creatures. Endless journey through space and time. But Amy Foster was still fighting, still recording, still trying to get word back to Earth. And sometimes, Jake thought as consciousness faded, that was all it took. Sometimes one person refusing to give up could save an entire world. Pete Davis's radio message reached Earth Command just as the first wave of smaller Vanguard ships began descending toward the planet. Admiral Kane heard his desperate warning through the static and immediately understood the terrible truth they were facing. All units, this is Admiral Kane. She broadcast to the Earth Defense Fleet. The aliens are hostile. They are not evolved humans. Repeat, they are not evolved humans. Engage all targets immediately. The space around Earth erupted into chaos as human warships opened fire on the Vanguard vessels. Laser cannons and missile batteries unleashed everything they had at the crystalline ships, but the weapons seemed to have no effect. The alien vessels absorbed the energy attacks and continued their descent toward Earth's major cities. Dr. Ben Clark watched the battle from the command center, his face pale with fear. Our weapons aren't working. The ships are just absorbing everything we throw at them. On the Vanguard mothership, Jake Morrison slowly regained consciousness. He found himself in one of the stasis pods, but the process of draining his mind had not yet begun. Amy Foster was in the pod next to him, and Pete Davis was across the room. All three were connected to machines that hummed with dark energy. Amy, Jake whispered, can you hear me? Amy's eyes opened slowly. Jake, where are we? Still on their ship. They're going to use us as fuel like the others. Jake tested the restraints holding him in the pod. They were strong, but not impossible to break if he could find the right leverage. Pete was awake too, and he was studying the machines connected to their pods. These energy drains work by reading our brain patterns and converting them to power. But I think I can reverse the process if I can reach the main control panel. One of the Vanguard beings approached their pods. It no longer bothered to maintain its human-like appearance. The creature was a mass of dark tentacles and glowing eyes, held together by the crystalline shell technology. Your species has begun to resist, the creature said, but it does not matter. We have harvested thousands of civilizations. Resistance always fails in the end. Amy glared at the creature. Why do you do this? Why can't you leave us alone? Because we must survive, the creature replied. Our own world died long ago. We learned to sustain ourselves on the consciousness of other species. It is the only way we can continue to exist. Jake watched as more pods around him began filling with new captives, human soldiers from the defense fleet, civilians from Earth's cities. Anyone the Vanguard could capture was being brought to the ship. On Earth, The situation was getting worse by the hour. The Vanguard ships had landed in New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other major cities. Strange beams of light shot down from the ships, and anyone caught in the light disappeared. Transported up to the alien vessels. General Murphy coordinated the ground defense from his bunker in Washington. We've lost contact with 12 major cities. The aliens are taking people by the thousands. Admiral Kane studied the tactical displays. Every conventional weapon they tried failed against the Vanguard technology. There has to be something we can do, some weakness we can exploit. Dr. Clark had been analyzing the data from Jake's team when he made a crucial discovery. Admiral, I found something. The creatures seem to have trouble processing certain types of human thought patterns. What do you mean? Dr. Clark brought up brain scan data on the main screen. When Lieutenant Foster was recording the aliens, her brain showed unusual activity patterns, high creativity, emotional responses, what we might call chaotic thinking. The aliens' technology couldn't properly read or process these patterns. Admiral Kane looked at the data. Are you saying that human creativity can somehow interfere with their systems? It's possible. Their technology is designed to harvest logical, structured consciousness. But human creativity, art, music, emotional responses, these might be too chaotic for them to handle. Back on the Vanguard ship, Jake was testing Dr. Clark's theory without even knowing it. As the machine tried to drain his consciousness, he found that focusing on memories of his childhood, his first love, the music he enjoyed, seemed to slow down the process. Amy noticed what he was doing. Jake, whatever you're thinking about, keep doing it. The machine's readings are fluctuating. Pete had managed to work one hand free from his restraints. If we can overload their systems with chaotic human thoughts, maybe we can break free. Jake began thinking about everything that made him human, not the logical, structured thoughts that the machines wanted, but the messy, emotional, creative thoughts that made no sense. He remembered his grandmother's terrible cooking that he pretended to love. He thought about the time he cried watching a sad movie. He recalled the feeling of holding his newborn niece for the first time. The machine attached to his pod began making strange noises. Sparks flew from the control panel as he tried to process the chaotic flood of human emotion and memory. Amy followed his example, flooding her mind with memories of her first day at the academy, the excitement of discovering a new star system, the fear and wonder of meeting alien life. Her machine also began to malfunction. Pete, being an engineer, thought about the satisfaction of fixing a broken engine, the frustration of dealing with bureaucratic red tape, the joy of creating something beautiful from spare parts. His machine overloaded completely, shorting out with a shower of sparks. The Vanguard creature guarding them rushed over to check the malfunctioning equipment. What is happening? The consciousness extraction should be simple. We're not simple, Jake said, his restraints finally breaking as the pod systems failed. We're human. We're messy and complicated and impossible to understand. More pods throughout the chamber began malfunctioning as the freed humans began helping others focus on their most human thoughts and memories. The extracted consciousness that the Vanguard had been using as fuel became unstable, corrupted by chaotic human emotions. On Earth, Dr. Clark's discovery was being put into action. Every radio station, television network, and internet site began broadcasting human art, music, and literature. Musicians played in the streets while painters created masterpieces on building walls. Writers composed poetry about hope and freedom. The Vanguard ships began to shudder and spark as the waves of human creativity reached them. Their technology, designed to process logical consciousness, couldn't handle the chaotic beauty of human art and emotion. It's working, Admiral Kane reported to her fleet. The alien ships are losing power. Whatever they're using for fuel is being disrupted. Jake and his team had freed dozens of captives from the stasis pods. Among them were people from throughout human history, all bringing their own unique perspectives and creativity to the growing chaos that was overloading the Vanguard systems. A Roman soldier shared stories of battle and honor. A woman from the 1920s sang jazz songs. A child from the future described games that hadn't been invented yet. Each voice added to the symphony of human experience that the Vanguard couldn't process or control. The lead Vanguard creature was becoming desperate. "Stop this! You are destroying everything we have built!" Amy stood up, her scientific mind now focused on the most unscientific thing of all: pure human defiance. "Good! You want to harvest our consciousness? Then take all of it. Take our love, our fear, our hope, our dreams, our stupid jokes, and our beautiful art. Take the part of us that makes no sense at all." The ship began to shake violently as its power systems overloaded. Jake realized that the Vanguard had made a fatal mistake. They had tried to harvest humanity's consciousness, but they had never understood what made humans truly human. "We need to get everyone to the escape pods," Jake shouted over the noise of failing systems. "This ship is going to tear itself apart." As they helped the freed captives toward the exit, Jake caught a glimpse of Earth through a viewing port. The planet was still there, still blue and green and beautiful. And for the first time since this nightmare began, he believed they might actually have a chance to save it. The Vanguard mothership was tearing itself apart from the inside. Jake Morrison led hundreds of freed humans through corridors that were collapsing as the ship's power systems failed. Sparks flew from the crystalline walls, and the artificial gravity flickered on and off. Amy Foster helped an elderly man from the 1950s who had been trapped in the pods for decades. "Stay close," she told him. "We're almost to the escape pods." Behind them, they could hear the Vanguard creatures screaming in languages that hurt to listen to. The aliens were losing control of their ship as human consciousness continued to overload their systems. Pete Davis had found the ship's main communication array and was broadcasting everything happening on the mothership directly to Earth. "This is Pete Davis to Earth Command. The aliens are vulnerable to human creativity and emotion. Use everything that makes us human against them." On Earth, the message was received loud and clear. In cities around the world, people were fighting back in the most human way possible. In New York, street musicians played jazz and rock music, while the alien ships above them sparked and shuddered. In Paris, artists painted murals of hope and defiance on every available wall. In London, children sang nursery rhymes in the streets while their parents told stories of heroes and adventure. In Tokyo, poets recited verses about love and loss, while dancers performed ancient ceremonies. Admiral O'Kane watched from Earth Command as the Vanguard ships began falling from the sky. "It's working. Every ship that's exposed to concentrated human culture is losing power." Dr. Ben Clark was coordinating the global response. "We need more poetry, music, art. Anything that shows human creativity and emotion. The more chaotic and beautiful, the better." Back on the mothership, Jake and his team had reached the escape pod bay. Dozens of small ships were waiting, but the Vanguard creatures were making one last desperate attempt to stop them. The alien leader, its crystalline shell cracked and leaking dark energy, confronted Jake at the entrance to the bay. "You think you have one? We have harvested 1,000 civilizations. Your chaos will not save you." Jake looked at the creature and felt not fear, but pity. "You don't understand, do you? You've been stealing consciousness for so long that you forgot what it really means to be alive." Amy stepped forward, her scientific mind now focused on something beyond logic. Being alive isn't about perfect efficiency or logical thought. It's about the messy, complicated, beautiful things that make no sense at all. The Roman soldier they had freed joined them, along with the jazz singer from the 1920s and the child from the future. Each brought their own piece of human experience to face the alien creature. "You want our consciousness?" the Roman said. "Then understand what honor means. It means choosing to protect others even when it costs you everything." The jazz singer began humming a melody that had no words but somehow expressed the joy of being alive. The child from the future laughed and said, "In my time, we have machines that can think faster than any human, but they can't dream, they can't hope. They can't love someone so much it makes them do stupid things." Pete had connected the ship's remaining power systems to broadcast everything happening in the bay directly to Earth. The emotions, the music, the stories, all of it was being transmitted to the planet below. The alien creature writhed as the waves of human experience washed over it. "Stop! This chaos is destroying our collective consciousness." "Good," Jake said simply. "Maybe it's time you learned what it feels like to be mortal." On Earth, something amazing was happening. People everywhere were coming together to share their most human experiences. Families told stories around dinner tables while broadcasting them online. Musicians collaborated across continents to create songs about hope. Artists drew pictures of everything they loved about being human. The remaining Vanguard ships in Earth's atmosphere began retreating, their systems overwhelmed by the planet-wide outpouring of human creativity. But Jake realized they needed something more to finish this. The mothership was still partially functional, and if it escaped, the Vanguard could repair their technology and try again with another world. "I'm going to overload their main power core," Jake announced. "If I can feed it enough chaotic human consciousness, the whole ship will shut down permanently." Amy grabbed his arm. "That's suicide! The power core will kill you." Jake smiled. "Maybe, but someone has to do it. And besides, what's more human than making a crazy sacrifice to save the people you care about?" Pete was already working on the ship's navigation systems. "If you're going to do this, I'm setting the ship on a course away from Earth. When it explodes, at least the debris won't hit the planet." Jake made his way to the ship's power core, while Amy helped the last of the freed humans into the escape pods. The core was a massive chamber filled with swirling energy that had once been the consciousness of thousands of sentient beings. As Jake approached the core, he thought about everything that made him human. His childhood on a farm in Kansas, his first day at the Space Academy, the friends he had made, the mistakes he had learned from, the small moments of joy that had no purpose except to make life worth living. He thought about his grandmother, teaching him to bake cookies even though they always burned. He remembered crying at movies and laughing at jokes that weren't really funny. He thought about the time he had spent 3 hours trying to untangle Christmas lights just because it was important to his niece. All of these memories, all of these memories, all of these experiences that had no logical purpose, Jake fed into the alien power core. The ship shuddered as its systems tried to process the beautiful chaos of human life. Amy's voice came over the radio. "Jake, all the escape pods are away. You need to get out of there." "I will," Jake promised, though he wasn't sure he meant it. He was feeding more and more of his consciousness into the core, overwhelming it with the pure randomness of human experience. The Vanguard creatures throughout the ship were screaming now, as their collective consciousness was corrupted by human emotion. They had spent eons perfecting their logical, efficient minds, and now they were being destroyed by the very chaos they had tried to harvest. Jake felt his own consciousness beginning to merge with the power core, but instead of being drained like the other victims, he was flooding it with everything that made him human. Love, fear, hope, despair, joy, anger, all of it pouring into the alien system like a virus made of pure humanity. The ship's core began to collapse in on itself, unable to contain the contradictory emotions and chaotic thoughts Jake was feeding it. As the power systems failed completely, Jake managed to reach an escape pod just as the ship began breaking apart. He launched just in time to see the Vanguard mothership tear itself into pieces, its crystalline hull shattering like glass. The remaining alien ships throughout the solar system lost power and drifted away into the darkness of space. From his escape pod, Jake could see Earth in the distance, still blue and green and beautiful. Amy's voice came over the radio. "Jake, are you okay?" "I'm fine," he replied, and realized it was true. "We all are." Pete's voice joined them. "Earth Command is reporting that all Vanguard ships have either been destroyed or retreated. The planet is safe as Jake's pod was recovered by an Earth ship." He thought about what they had learned. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their ability to create beauty in the face of darkness, to find meaning in chaos, and to sacrifice everything for something greater than themselves. The Vanguard had thought they could harvest human consciousness like any other resource. But consciousness wasn't just thought and memory. It was the spark of creativity that made humans build cathedrals and write poetry and fall in love even when it made no logical sense. And that spark, Jake knew, could never be harvested or controlled or stolen. It could only be shared freely, human to human, in the messy, beautiful, impossible way that life was meant to be lived. Earth was safe, and humanity had learned that sometimes the best way to win was simply to be human.